Let me try and describe what you're proposing in one or two sentences. The lowest 50% of income in this society control or have roughly 1.5% of wealth. So to guarantee that they have a larger amount of wealth at retirement, what you and Teresa Ghilarducci are proposing is opening up the federal thrift savings plan, which is essentially like a 401k, to millions of Americans, whether they be federal employees or civil private sector employees, and allow them to take part in that plan. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And it would even apply to people, say, who are driving an Uber or something like that, too. So even people that are independent contractors, we think should qualify. And I think that the headline that you started with, that basically the bottom half of the wealth distribution or income distribution has basically no wealth. The bottom quarter has a negative net worth. I think we've really seen the strains that has put on society, especially starkly over the last couple of years. And the bottom line is, if most people in society don't have capital, then it's not clear that capitalism is sustainable. And so, as you know, I'm a pretty knuckle-dragging right-winger. Teresa is, I don't think she drags her knuckles, but she's, usually she and I disagree about things in the sort of capitalism space. But I've looked at her work, and I think that this proposal to basically let all Americans, or especially low and middle income Americans, have access to the thrift savings plan could fundamentally alter both the welfare of people at the bottom, but also the stability of society. Because if everybody's got a stake in the game, if everybody's happy when, say, markets are going up, then we're all kind of pulling in the same direction.
Well, let me ask you this, and I'm using data from your paper.
Uh-huh.
This is the largest, essentially, kind of direct contribution savings plan in the country, if you're going to compare it to 401ks. If we move millions of more people into it, how much does that cost taxpayers? Because the current plan, the federal government, is matching the contributions that people pay into this.
Right. Well, and in a follow-on study that, we give a glimpse of in our paper, but is, coming out shortly at the Economic Innovation Group, we're going to have all the gory details people want about the cost of this. But the way to think about it is that right now there's lots and lots of tax subsidies for savings for high-income folks. And basically for low-income folks, there's not a whole lot. And the reason is that if you're not paying much tax, then sheltering your income from tax isn't that valuable. And so when you're thinking about, well, how much tax revenue do we lose if we all of a sudden get this really, really wonderful, attractive IRA and make it available to people with low incomes? The answer is you're not going to lose tax revenue. But the spending side, as you rightly point out, is significant in the sense that if we give people access to the thrift savings plan, have the federal government match their contributions, say from 3 to 5%, then that government spending is going to be a cost. And again, we've done some very careful modeling, and it's looking like it's 50, 60 billion a year, depending on what your match is. But don't forget, though, that it's not just the government that we're optimizing for, it's society. And what we're doing is if the government spends some money to match for you to put your money in your account, and then you get it defaulted into, the target 2090 retirement, which is right for your life cycle, right? Then what's going to happen is we're investing at a much higher rate of return than we're borrowing, and so society has to be better off.
Okay, I want to rephrase what you said, though, because you had 60 billion just in 2021, assuming that the average of the median household earnings of the person taking part in the plan is 52 grand. It actually is $100 billion if they go for the full 5% match. And your paper points out that when offered the match, vast numbers of people, I think it was over 90%, maximize for the
right. That's right. And we're upfront about the cost, but we think that the benefits, again, if you think about it from society as a whole, the benefits have to, dramatically outweigh the costs, even if you don't consider things like social stability and so on.
You really think Republicans would go for this? I imagine the Democrats might, but would Republicans, in a world where they keep saying you got to pay for stuff?
Yeah, well, the point is that our job in this paper is to talk about, and this is something you and I haven't talked about yet, the thrift savings plan is, the one thing that government's done that really looks to me like it's completely optimally designed. It's the best policy the federal government has ever come up with. Maybe there's other things too, like I guess the vaccine policy last year is pretty good and so on. But it's an incredible policy because it's based on the latest science. There's all this innovative new science that shows what it takes to get people to save, and what happens if you have auto enrollment, if you have default people into sort of low cost mutual funds and so on. Do they stay there, or do they start going out into higher load funds and so on? And basically they've designed the thrift savings plan optimally. And you can really see it in the results. The CBO did a study and showed that low income people and minorities, that they participate up to about 95%. Whereas, out there in the normal world where they don't have access to this, there's almost no participation in retirement funds. And so I think that if we were to take the TSP and make it available to everybody and have some match, get the thing going, then it's going to work. We have enough evidence that we can really believe it's going to work. So the question is it worth the cost? And that's a political statement. It depends on what you're going to cut to pay for it, things like that. But our job is to get people excited about the policy, which I think they should be. It's in fact policy.
You point out that if you get these people into this program as you describe it, at the end, they're paying taxes on the income they're withdrawing. These are not Roth programs. So there would be an income tax on people who've essentially moved out of poverty and now have income in retirement.
Depending on how long, like, so say you have a 25-year-old that isn't really making much money and doesn't pay the income tax, but then they put the money away and they've got, say, $500,000. We've done lots of simulations in the paper, as you know, about how much money you get if you keep it in for a long time. Then when that money starts to come out in retirement, then it could well be taxable. It will definitely, it'll fund consumption, and we'll get states will get sales tax from it and so on. And so really what you're doing is you're on the tax side, you're coming out ahead in all likelihood, to the extent there's any tax at all in the future, because there's not a lot of tax now. But on the spending side, that's the thing that you end up having to pay for. But that's why it's surprising to people how little this costs, actually. Like you were pointing, that's a lot of money. But it really doesn't cost a lot of money because it's the government match that's pretty much the whole cost.